Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It gives me a great deal of pleasure to be able to stand up and debate and get on the record a few things in regards to the budget. So I'm going to start off with the question that I asked in question period today to the Minister of Employment and Immigration, and was somewhat ridiculed in regards to, are you spending or are you saving? And you know, Mr. Speaker, I've been around a long time in this legislature, and sometimes that's good news and sometimes it's not so good news because it kind of ages you. But I will tell you that my previous background was drug and alcohol counseling, so I feel that I know a fair amount about what was going on with that particular area. And I can tell you the fact of the matter is that 6 weeks isn't long enough, and the Southern Alberta group that is concerned about this knows that. They have professionals that deal with this, and the minister spoke about the fact the cost for the beds. Well, I can tell you at the far end of it, it's much more costly if we are having them incarcerated or if we're having them in our healthcare system because of their alcohol or drug addictions and their mental issues. So, you know, it's like it's been brought up before. It's called prioritization. So let's just talk a little bit about prioritization. And I'm just going to focus just on ministerial staff and minister's budget and exactly what's happening in some of the budgets. And there, you know, there has to give some credit to the government and not so much credit on the others. So I'm just going to talk a minute, and I'm going to find my budget, about the minister's office in regards to priorities. And the priorities of the minister office is very interesting because if we look down the line at all of the ministers, for example, Aboriginal Relations, their minister's office budget was flatlined. Advanced education took a deduction, which I think is showing leadership, quite frankly. Agriculture stayed the same. Children and youth services stayed the same. Education stayed the same. Energy stayed the same. Finance stayed the same. Health stayed, which I find interesting from the finance minister because he stood up in this legislature talking about how he's going to balance the books, and he can't even do anything on his own budget. Health, municipal affairs, tourism budget didn't change whatsoever in the ministerial's office. Transportation didn't change whatsoever. So it was interesting. So I'm going to focus on just a couple of setting priorities in this government. So I'd like to talk just briefly for a minute on Executive Council. And I just want to talk very shortly in regards to priorities of the Premier's office in regards to their Public Affairs Bureau, which has stayed the same again, but the spending, which I find very fascinating, is on branding, which is $9.6 million last year and now is $7 million this year. And I still can't figure out what we're branding and why we want to brand it, and have never really ever been given any sort of rationale behind that so that I could say, yeah, I support that. We need to get Alberta branded. Public Affairs Bureau, huge, $14.3 million. And I could go on in some of those, you know, and the honourable member behind me talked briefly today about children's services, and it was interesting to hear the debate in the House in regards to the description of cuts and not cuts. And, you know, Mr. Speaker, I was a former minister of that department, had the honour and privilege of being the Minister of Children's Services for 2 years, and quite frankly, quite appalled about what's happening in the recent developments. And, you know, I listened to my colleague behind me, and I don't necessarily agree with the NDP all the time, but I certainly can tell you she's tenacious. She's like a little dog with a bone when she gets on an issue. And we talked about the times of the 5 days or the 3 days. And quite frankly, it's irrelevant. The timing is irrelevant in regards to when this issue was brought forward. As a Minister of the Crown, and I was told that under the previous leader, you are responsible for what happens in your department. That particular ministry is 24/7. We spoke in estimates. We talked about some of the things, and I'm getting all sorts of emails right now in regards to the CEO of Region 6, and I want to put that on the record. I had the honor and privilege of working with that particular individual when I was minister, and he's an outstanding employee. I always found that his heart was in the right place, and his number one priority was always the children in this province. So for someone to say that there hasn't been any cuts in the ministry, if you go to the minister's budget, no. But then you have to start digging deeper down in regards to Region 1, Region 2, Region 3, Region 4, and all the way through. What's always fascinated me is the fact that, it was pointed out today about the foster care support, but if you go onto Region 6 and see the cuts there, it's beyond my comprehension, quite frankly. And when I spoke to the minister in estimates, I asked her about her own ministerial budget and asking her why at that particular time she didn't show initiative or, quite frankly, leadership in making cuts within her particular budget. So there's a whole bunch of things that can be questioned in this budget. We talk about the oil and gas, and I find that conversation always very fascinating. When I was a previous member of the government, and for 2.5 years was speaking to the previous Minister of Energy about all of my concerns, what was going on in this royalty report. I have hundreds of pages, actually 3 file folders full of documentation that I sent to that particular minister at the time saying, please don't do this, think about what you're doing, and have kept that, because I think it was important. And I had many conversations with the previous Minister of Energy, and we had some good conversation, and I know he got it. He got what was happening in this province and what was happening to the oil and gas industry, and appreciated for the fact that he took the time. He met with many of the people that, I put a group of people together the December of, I guess it would have been 8, and they drove down to meet with them. There was a group of them that had put together right from the big businesses to the small business to voice their concerns about what was happening. 2.5 years, Mr. Chair. And the government finally wakes up and they say, maybe we made a mistake on the royalty, and maybe we realize all of the money that's leaving this province, going to BC and going to Saskatchewan. Oh, wait, we're losing investor confidence, and where's that going? And 2.5 years later, they all of a sudden wake up and they have this competitive review and they say, gee, we get it. There is not an MLA in Calgary that doesn't realize the potential and the devastation that has happened in that economic engine of the oil and gas sector, and not only in Calgary, but it's all the way through. I mean, I have a son that started off as a rig pig, and he would phone me and he'd say, Mom, I'm in wherever. And I'd say to him, where is that? And so he would explain to me, and I think we forget about all of the things that we've been doing, particularly in regards to they're using their hotels, they're using the gas,